In this video, my game goes from looking like this to this, but it took me a while to figure out how I should go about it. Textures and props will definitely make the game look much better, but it's not as simple as just slapping a texture on my 3D models and calling it a day. One of the first things I noticed, which my friend called out as well, was that the game just looked too busy on the eye. So the first course of action was to lower the resolution of the textures. This helped a lot, but I still wasn't satisfied. So I then lowered the values of the normal and height maps and then tested the different filter modes for the textures. Finally, I ended up with this. Obviously, it still looks more busy on the eye than, say, just one color like it was before, but I think it's an overall improvement. So, a little known fact is that creating doors for games can be an absolute headache for a variety of reasons. Designing them is just much harder than you'd expect. It's one of the many reasons as to why I just use sliding doors in this game. It circumvents a lot of the problems and just looks cool. But one problem I hadn't tackled yet was how the enemies should react to them. Like, how do they know whether the doors are closed or not, given that their navigation mess is baked in the editor? Well, it turns out it's pretty easy and can be implemented in literal seconds. All I had to do was just add this component called navigation obstacle and then just make sure to disable it when the door is open and then re-enable it when closed. And there you go, they can't go through it. This, however, does not stop them from trying, which looks pretty weird. But as it turns out, all you have to do is just tick this box that says carve, which alters the navigation mess at runtime, meaning that they'll look for a different path. Whilst making the new textured version of the door, I also ended up refactoring the code that handles its different interactions as well. Before, you would actually just lock the door computers instead of the door itself, which didn't really make sense. It meant you could sometimes open the door from one side, but not the other. And if I wanted to lock a door, I would have to set each of its computers to be locked. Now the door handles all its different states and then updates the computers depending on the current state. This is a much better system and honestly how it should have been in the first place. When it comes to creating the environment, I went with a highly modular approach. To begin with, all I had were just these three models: the corridor, four-way piece, and the wall. The coolest thing about this is that I didn't need to model a three-way piece or different corner pieces. Instead, I just placed down this four-way one and then insert the walls wherever I want. This sped up development by a lot and makes the level design so much easier. It also tricks my monkey brain into thinking he's playing Lego, which is a big win in my book. I decided to completely ditch these gravity elevators that I had made early on. They kind of just looked stupid, were boring to use, and my implementation also had some issues. Now I use these corridor ramps instead, which look much better, add some nice verticality to the environments, and are much easier to design around. I then took a break from working on the environment and added this new groundbreaking feature allowing you to lean left and right. I just used the built-in animation tool in Unity for the leaning animations instead of doing it by code. It's much simpler this way and overall less prone to error, but at first the values were way too high, so when you leaned you probably looked a little something like this. But I wanted to add this feature since I think it complements the hacking mechanic really well, allowing it to hack things around corners. And creeping around said corners also just adds to the spook factor. I've been having a pretty hard time figuring out what else I should add to the shape. I had hoped to have done more environment stuff before making this devlog, but what you gonna do? What I did add, however, were these cool looking ceiling tubes, which then required me to move the lights and turn them into wall lights instead. Then I made these super simple metal beams as well, offsetting them a little to give the shape a more run-down look. This alone added a lot to the interiors, and I also have a few ideas for different hackable objects that I could add as well. I touched a bit on this in the last devlog, but the game takes place very far into the future, where humans have evolved to the point where they are now fully dependent on brain chips, which are implanted at birth. There are two dominant species of humans, the purebred and the workers. Workers are bred with rapid aging and then kept in nourishment pods until they are deemed effective enough to carry out their assigned work. They are then implanted with lesser brain chips that are made to maximize their effectiveness. Once they have become too old to reach their required effectiveness, they are terminated through a kill switch in their brain chip, and then used as fodder for their fellow workers, keeping the cycle going and making sure nothing goes to waste. The big room I showed off in the last video has been completely reworked to better fit the existing environment pieces. I just stacked two four-way pieces on top of each other and then altered them, resulting in this. I still need to fix up the textures, but it's definitely much better than what I had before. This way I can also have a window from a corridor looking into the room like this, which is pretty awesome. I'll have to rework the AI computer and brain assembly puzzle a little as well, which was expected. What I showed off in the last video was more of a proof of concept. My next major milestone for the game is to refine the combat and the enemies. The combat is going to be completely environmental based, which definitely presents some challenges. But I think it could be really cool and pretty unique if done right. Once that's done, I'm going to focus on content and making a finished product. I've said it before, but my main goal with this project is to make a finished commercial game. Of course, I want to make the best game I can, but I have to make sure not to get stuck in an endless loop of refinement. Make sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification if you don't want to miss out on the next devlog. Liking the video would be much appreciated as well. Thanks for watching.